From cozy living rooms to buzzing bookstores, book clubs have long been spaces for connection, reflection, and the occasional passionate debate. In this special mini-series of On the Table with Ashley, we're exploring the world of book clubs, how they begin, what keeps them going, and the surprising ways they foster community and connection over time. We've selected 3 long-term book club members to share their expertise, and we'll be learning alongside you about what makes a book club thrive. Whether you're part of a long-standing group or dreaming of starting one, we hope these conversations offer a bit of guidance, inspiration, and the reminder that at its core, reading is all about connection. This is episode 2 with Nan Williamson. Enjoy.
Nan, thank you so much for joining me. I'm really excited to talk with you about your book club. I just finished a wonderful discussion with your husband, Hugh, about his book club, which is pretty spectacular. And when I visited your beautiful home in Denver, I feel like I heard a little bit more about his book club than yours. So I'm really excited to dig in and hear more about your book club. But before I do that, I always like to start my discussions hearing a little bit about where you grew up and what kind of kid you were when you were young.
Well, I grew up in Texas, just south of Fort Worth in a small town. I had 3 brothers, so I spent most of my time outdoors, building forts, tree houses, on a swing set, just playing outdoors. And because we had so much freedom, riding my bicycle all over town. And I did not grow up in a literary family, so I didn't grow up reading a lot. In fact, I think, as I recall, having to take a nap because this was back in high polio days, and having to take a nap and read was almost like a punishment.
Oh, my goodness. So where in Texas did you grow up?
Well, Cleburne, just south of Fort Worth, about 30 miles south of Fort Worth.
And how big was the town?
Under 10,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so tell us how you got into reading then.
Well, I was never a good reader. I had actually had trouble learning to read when I was in first grade. And I remember not really enjoying it because we were in these circles, were designated like, bluebird, redbird, whatever. But you knew that the group I was in was the lowest. I dreaded going to the circle to read because we had to read out loud. So I didn't have a good experience, but I did not understand why. This was way before any kind of learning disabilities. And as I progressed through school, I avoided subjects that had a lot of reading as much as I could to them, especially in colleges like history that had big reading assignments.
And so what changed?
Well, I think what changed is I was a very slow reader and still am. And the ability to retain what I've read was very difficult. And when our youngest grandson was in the first grade, he began to have some trouble reading. And so I talked to my son and said, I had that same feeling. And this was 60-something years ago. And it spurred me to take a reading class at a learning center with all these grade school kids. And it was a 6-week class, and I took it, and it's all computerized, and you go through all these programs. And at the end of the 6 weeks, the evaluation, I had not improved. And, of course, they were shocked. I didn't want to speed read. I just wanted to read faster and be able to retain what I was reading. But I didn't improve. So that spurred me to take a giant leap to go to see a psychiatrist who specialized in ADD for adults. And after a few sessions with her, diagnosed that I indeed had ADD all my life. Of course, did not know it. But it was a huge relief. Not that it made a whole lot of difference in how I was going to read, but accepting it and not beating myself up, So being in a book club just helps me to continue reading and enjoy that discussion with other people.
So is there anything that you learned about the ADD, like are there skills that you can hone to help you read and retain knowledge? Or perhaps being in the book club actually helps you retain knowledge
Right.
because of the discussion?
Yes, there are. But this is, again, almost difficult for someone with ADD because you have to focus so on these skills. And it takes a lot of self discipline. And then I discovered this at age 67. So I didn't really have the incentive to work on the skills as much as the kind of relief to know that it was okay. I don't have some of the skills that you have or that Hugh has or most people have. And accepting that and realize that's just not the way my brain works, then it's okay. That the relief of it, I think probably was as much a help as, learning new skills.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you had that experience going to the psychologist or psychiatrist, was that also helpful for your grandson?
Well, I think it was because I think they realized that he did have indeed some, Mark, our son, just said, well, Mom, yeah, I think so. Because I think Mark, even though I have a master's degree in early childhood education, all of the training and awareness of the learning disabilities, ADD, came after my education. So I was not even aware of it with my own sons. And so I think probably my youngest son also was affected by ADD, and I feel badly that I was not aware of it. But it was just before that was as common a knowledge as certainly it is now.
Okay, tell us about the two book clubs that you've been part of in Denver.
The first one went shortly after. It was formed about the same time Hugh's was, with the wife of the man that Hugh started his book club with. Both couples had recently moved to Denver. So that one was primarily as a way of meeting new people in Denver. I knew one woman here in Denver when we moved here, and so we just accumulated friends that we began to meet and formed a book club. And that one lasted, I would say, probably 12 years. And then there was about a 5-year space in between the one I'm in now, that a totally different group of people, of women, that is more in my neighborhood, more geographically located, but primarily made up of friends that I already knew.
So I'm interested in how many people were in each, why the first one ended.
Okay. 12 both started.
Okay.
Primarily because of the month, having someone in charge each month. And the first one, as I look back, probably dissolved after the woman who, with myself, formed that club, moved. And so when she left, and I think in timing in our lives too, several people had second homes, who were spending 6 months away in the winter primarily. Women began to have grandchildren that they wanted to spend more time with. That for that book club, then were a couple of illnesses also. I think just the timing, and I've always felt like things have a life, and I think that one lived its life. And then there was about 5 years, and another friend who was not in that book club and I just kind of one day said, let's get a book club going, but let's do it with friends that are, as Denver's gotten more crowded and traveling greater distances, you can't guarantee to be there in 15 minutes. Now it's 30 minutes to be at someone's house. We knew everyone, and everyone pretty much knew each other. And that there were 12 of those women.
And that book club is still going today.
Yes, it is.
So he was telling us about some of the, I don't think he would call them rules, but sort of the rules of the book club. So like you have to be committed. You have to read the book. You have to show up. If it's your book, you have to be prepared to lead a discussion. Do you have the same or similar rules?
I think ours is looser than his, though we have one person, and we go alphabetically as much as possible, is in charge and hosting. We have hours in the afternoon because we have dealt with having fixed lunch and meals before and didn't want a part of that. So we meet from 3 to 5, basically.
Okay.
And just have light snacks. And I think certainly we stress attendance and reading of the book and so forth, but not probably as strictly as Hugh's,
Do you have a page maximum? So they have set a 350-page maximum after some people chose like 700-page books.
Well, we basically are in the 400-page realm, though we did recently read Covenant of Water, which is about 750, and we divided it over 2 months.
I just finished that book. It was wonderful.
It was amazing.
Yes.
So we did it over 2 months.
Okay. And then tell me a little bit about the discussion. So in the 2 hours that you're meeting, how much of it is sort of socializing versus actually a discussion about the book?
Very little socializing. Come together and get something cold to drink or a hot tea, depending on the weather.
And is the person who chose the book the one who is responsible for leading the discussion?
Yes. And doing, research on the author and, different views or ideas, from the book. Yes.
Well, let's just talk about The Covenant of Water since I just read it as well. Can you tell me, and that one you did it over 2 times, so you had 4 hours to discuss it. Can you tell me some of the things that you discussed?
Well, I can't tell you about the first half because I missed the first half of it.
Okay.
I think because there were so many characters in that book that the woman who did the facilitating on that one did a great job of actually sending us a list of the characters and who they were and who they were related to, because as you know, it gets very complicated.
Yeah. Was it a discussion about the politics of having people who came from Britain and other European places and sort of take over in India?
I think it was a combination of both things, but probably more the story than the overriding, how it all happened or how it all came together.
Okay. And so how long has this book club been around?
It's about 10 years.
It's about 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And people still probably have second homes and grandchildren and all of that. But because it's a neighborhood book club, do you feel like it's more sustainable?
I think because of the time in our lives, it is. We're probably more kind of at home because most of the ones in this book club are around 80. So it's different demands and certainly, I think, a more flexible time.
Yeah, that makes sense. And what made you seek out starting a second book club? What did you get out of the first one that maybe you hoped to get out of the second one that you maybe missed during that 5-year hiatus?
Well, I think it is basically discussing a book with other people. I read probably 2 or 3 other books a month besides my book club book. But I think you just get so much more, or I do, when you're discussing a book with, and we read primarily fiction, but still discussing it with other people, other people's ideas or things you missed, or there are things like, wow, did I read the same book? Kind of thing. So I think that kind of socialization or input is what I gain a lot. I can sit down and read a book, but I don't think it's nearly as rich as if I discuss it with other people.
And how do you choose your books? So Hugh was saying he gets recommendations from you, from one of your sons, or maybe both of them. Is that the same for you as well?
Well, we read primarily fiction, though we are certainly not opposed to nonfiction, and it's totally up to the hostess. We don't recommend, we don't have themes, So for me, I have an independent bookstore that I really like. And so I frequent that and say, what do you like? And they're really good. A couple of women run it. And, I said, what do you've read that you really love and recommend for a book club, And so they've been a great source. Or I see something on the internet, and it looks, good or whatever. And we also try to have the hostess or the one hosting to have read the book. So there are not some surprises like, oh, I'm sorry, I recommended that book. We don't come and ask what we want to read. It's strictly up to the person who's next in line to be prepared at the meeting before theirs to say, this is what we're reading next month.
So the person you said you schedule alphabetically. So
yes.
You have every whatever.
Right.
May is yours or whatever.
And it's just, we're very flexible. If you're going to be out of town or you can't do it, certainly you switch around, and we do that. We normally don't meet in December, and we're down to 10 people in ours right now and haven't replaced them. We just decided that if somebody wants to invite someone, fine, but otherwise we'll just press on.
Okay. So 10 is still a good number, you
yes.
feel like. And how do you handle difficult discussions? I'm sure there are some books that bring up some topic that could be difficult for somebody. Is that the responsibility of the facilitator to manage, or how have you dealt with that?
Well, I think it ideally is for the facilitator, but I think we know each other well enough that it hasn't really been a problem, even though obviously there are tough things that are tough for all of us. We're basically politically pretty much the same, and that can either be good or bad. We could probably use a little more diversity to challenge some of these things that we read or situations we get into. But so far, we're able to talk about things that are really tough, but respecting ideas, but they're not too radically different, I should say.
And do you feel like the book club has brought something or someone into your life in an unexpected or meaningful way?
Well, I think you certainly get to know people in a different way than if you're just a coffee friend, because like you say, you're discussing some things that you wouldn't maybe normally discuss. I think it's been very enriching for relationships. And I think most people would say that.
And I know Hugh had said, which I thought was so interesting, that they sometimes invite authors to come to their book club. Is that something that you have done?
We have not. Primarily, we haven't read that many local fiction writers. We've had one, but that's in 10 years.
Have you had your month this year? What book did you choose last year?
The one I chose last year was Witchcraft for Wayward Girls. And
I don't know.
Okay, I saw it, I guess it was on the internet. It's about these maternity homes in the 70s, 60s. No, wait a minute, before that, 50s. Well, it was my age group where if a girl got pregnant, they were sent away. This was before abortions were legal, sent away to these homes. And then it weaves a little witchcraft into it, which was quite fascinating because I knew nothing about witchcraft. You talk about a tough discussion. It was very interesting because everybody in our book club is from different parts of the country. And so you experience these things in different ways. You were part of that, or you had a friend or a college roommate or somebody that disappeared for 9 months or whatever. Anyway, it was a very interesting discussion.
I mean, I've heard of these places. So girls would be sent away, and then they would have the baby, and then the baby would be
put up for adoption.
Given for adoption.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So all of that was very documented. I mean, it's still a fiction. And then this witchcraft came into the story just to give it a little empowerment, which was really fascinating. But it's a good read.
And I know you said you don't have rules. Whoever's hosting gets to choose the book. Do you tend to read newer books, or do you also read classics?
We have read some classics, but most are newer.
Okay. And you said you think you get more out of the books when you read them in a group setting Do you feel like the genre or the mix is also different than what you choose to read outside of the book club?
Probably, but not drastically. For instance, I think I don't know if you're familiar with like Killers of the Flower Moon.
I just watched that movie with my son,
okay.
and I didn't know the story, which made me sad that I didn't know the history.
Well, I lived in Oklahoma twice, and one of the other women in our book club is also part Cherokee, lived in Oklahoma, lived very close to where this whole story originated and happened, and she was not even aware of it. Those kind of awakenings are amazing, you know.
Yeah.
So that we've chosen to read some great things that have been very eye-opening, and yet we read a lot just for pleasure too. I think both are important.
Do you think that some of these discussions that you have at your book club around these topics that are more difficult have changed your opinions or the way you think about certain things in life?
Well, I don't know if they changed. I think I'll give you an example of another one, and this is one that I chose, which is A Fever in the Heartland, which is about the Ku Klux Klan in the 1920s and 30s, which when I saw the book, I thought, well, that's fascinating. I thought it was primarily during the Civil War. So I read this, and on page like 39, my grandfather is quoted. And I knew that he was a card-carrying Ku Klux Klan member, but here he is in print. And so it was, in a way, presenting that to my book club was a risk for me. And yet, in a scrapbook down in my basement, I have his card. So I brought that Ku Klux Klan card to the book club and said, and he was sheriff of Dallas County at the time. But anyway, those kind of things, are revealing. And yet, do I change the feeling? It's still a part of my past, which I'm not proud of, but I had no part in it. But it's part of my history, or it's part of the history that we live in,
When do you spend the most time with the people you love? For us, it's at home, around the dinner table with family, or sipping cocktails in the living room with friends. So why not make that time even more meaningful by imbuing your gatherings with pieces that not only make connecting easier, but spark conversation around your table? Amaton's collection of small batch, artisan, quality-made pieces for tabletop and home are not only made for simple serving, they're works of art designed for daily use. Whether you're hosting a dinner party or sitting down for family game night, our collections create a sense of presence and peace in every home. Shop our collection of dinnerware, drinkware, serveware, and more at amatond.com. That's AMEATENDRE.com. Gather by design.
Yeah, and I think the ability to be vulnerable with a group of people and share that history and make peace with that history in some way has to be healing too, and not just for you, but probably for the whole group. There have to be some ripple effects out from the group from those kinds of discussions, I would think. So it's like an even broader impact than just those people who are part of your club.
Oh, sure. Yeah. And you don't know what that is. And like I said, a risky, vulnerable position. But I had read the book before presenting it, and I thought, no, I need to do this, and it was good for me. Now, I don't know what everybody thought, but they were, at the time, seemed quite accepting and, appreciative of that. And, maybe help them in some ways heal some of their past that maybe wasn't shared, or, everybody has a story.
And actually, that's another thing that Hugh said, that confidentiality was a really important part of their book club, because people tend to share things that may or may not be related to any book that they're reading, but something that they're just dealing with in their life. Do you feel like that happens in your book club as well? I mean, this story is one story of how that happens, but that's very related to a book that you were reading.
We haven't addressed the confidentiality issue. And if that quote or whatever in the book that in its connection to me had been something I didn't want them to share, to me, it would have been my responsibility to say, don't connect me with this, but I didn't. And because there's no way, I mean, if you read it, you wouldn't know it was my grandfather because it's on my my mother's side, so we don't have the same name. But we haven't done that. I'm in a group that met this morning of women, in which confidentiality is number one, primary. I mean, and we've been together for 35 years, but it's not a book group. It's a different kind of group. But in our book club, no, we have not discussed confidentiality as such.
And maybe it's not important for every book club. I think it's interesting. If you're willing to share what kind of group this other group is and how many women and how often you meet, I'm interested in hearing about that too. I think, the reason that I wanted to do this sort of mini series on building a good book club or meaningful book club is that I think that we're all always as humans searching for more, meaning and connection in our lives. So it may come in the form of a book club, but it may be in some other sort of gathering.
Correct. And this other group I'm in is a much more connected group in that respect. We have met for 35 years once a month. And one of the structural parts in the beginning of that is confidentiality. And people have actually been asked to leave who have broken that bond. So that is crucial to that group. And
is that just like a group of friends or is it?
Well,
okay.
It grew out of are you familiar with YPO?
Yes.
Okay. It grew out of spouses for what we call forums of members, and our husbands were all in YPO, of course now old. So we started our women's forum 35 years ago. It's changed a little bit because of people either moving or for other reasons couldn't make the commitment, because that's a huge commitment too, once a month. The confidentiality, the trust that you build, you can imagine after that many years.
And how many women are in that group?
Well, right now we're down to 7. And we started at 12. And like I said, it's fluctuated some. At this point, to bring someone in makes no sense because we have so much history. And so it's one of those that will die with the group. And there's 7 of us left in that group now. It's kind of matured to the point where, in such support of each other. And especially at this point, when you have 3 of them are widows, one husband has Alzheimer's, there's just all these issues that 30 years of bonding gives huge support,
Well, that was actually going to be my question, which is, what do you think? And maybe this has changed over the 35 years, but what has it given you? What is it like feeding in you fundamentally?
Well, it's the kind of a deep friendship, totally different than just a social friendship that you've got. I could call any of these women at 2:00 in the morning and say, I need you here, in 10 minutes or whatever, or I got a question or something. It's just a beautiful relationship. And these are not women that I necessarily would have picked out. We just came together with this common seeking of a connection. But so I'm really, feel very blessed that I know these women that I might not have even known otherwise, because they're not all in my book club. Well, actually, 2 of them are, but that's not the reason.
Right. Well, I'm so happy for you. What an amazing group, honestly. And sort of finishing out this discussion on the book club and sort of these gatherings, and then I have a few questions I like to ask all of my guests, but are there any things that you think are critical to forming a good group, whether it's something as meaningful as your YPO group or your book club, which is meaningful to you in a different way? Do you think that, you were just talking about having some commonality, whether it's seeking a connection or intellectual curiosity or whatever it is? Maybe that's sort of one thing I take away is you have to have some common interest. But do you have any advice for people who want to start a club, whether it's a book club or some other sort of gathering, to maximize the possibility of success at it?
Well, I think there's, number one, the desire to connect with someone, whether it's through a book and a book discussion, or whether it's through some other commonality, like in our forum. And for the book club, I think it's commitment. I think that is, but I think, to me, any organization I commit to join or something, if I can't be there, then I don't commit to join it. It's hard for me now because I'm in and out so much to even commit. We make a very special effort to be back here this week for my forum and our 2 book clubs. But I think connection, to me, is going to become even more important as we get into everything we can do online. And, because to me, it's not the same. It isn't the same.
You said the same thing, and I agree. So at the end of every episode, I like to ask the same questions of my guests. The first one is, as we explore in my brand, Amatand, objects can hold a lot of meaning for us. They can tie us to the past, enable us to enjoy the present more, or even sometimes take us into the future. Can you share an object from your life, whether you still have it or not, that holds a lot of meaning for you, and tell us why?
Well, as I thought about that, it almost chuckled because we have moved 22 times. And so a lot of things, I do not have a lot of things that came with me, 60 years ago that are still with me, because with every move you pare down or you change, or we, refurnished a home a zillion times. And so I don't have heirlooms and things. But the one thing that I have drug with us, and I have gotten rid of almost everything over the years, is the iron baby bed that both of our sons were babies in. And it's an antique iron bed. It would fit no code today. At the time, I loved having this old iron baby bed, and it's in our basement. I have no idea why I still have it.
I was just going to ask you why you still have it.
But it's probably the oldest thing I have, other than my wedding ring.
Okay. And where do you remember where you got it?
Well, I would have gotten it in Texas because that's where the first one was born. And like I said, we refinished it and made these little bumper, I made a quilt for it and all this thing. And like I say, it would not pass any kind of code. In fact, I couldn't use it for my grandsons because it was not appropriate. But somehow our sons survived.
And it means enough to you that you've carried it 22 homes.
Exactly. So. Yeah. Isn't that fun? It's crazy.
It is. It's so interesting what we do, right? Can you share a favorite tradition? It could be something from when you were a child, or something you did with your children, or something you do with Hugh today.
I also laughed at this because I think our tradition was almost to be non-traditional because we never lived close to either one of our nuclear families. And I think I heard Hugh saying this, that our holidays, we selfishly went skiing. We didn't follow the traditions or whatever of either one of our families. And so we kind of became the mavericks. And so to be kind of untraditional was our tradition. But the one thing I think that we have done, and Hugh and I continue to do, is I don't believe we ever have had not a sit-down breakfast or dinner. We have never, even when the boys were in high school and played many sports, nobody ever came in and grabbed something and left and ate. We have always eaten those 2 meals together, sitting down at a table that is set, with placemats and napkins. And Hugh and I still do that. And I don't know if that's a tradition. It's just, I think, an important part of our lives to be together at those times. And nothing, even if we had to be flexible in the time, we did, rather than have somebody just come in and grab some, and go.
Well, I think that that's increasingly important. We focus on family dinners, and I feel like they are getting lost.
Yeah.
So that time sitting down, spending that time together, I think is increasingly important.
I think so.
So it's a beautiful thing. Hugh told us that you love to entertain. I saw that when I came to visit you too, but that you have this beautiful circular dining table and that it's really a wonderful place to have discussion and gathering, and that's something that you do frequently.
Right.
I don't know if there's anything you want to add about entertaining in your home to that.
Well, I really like to cook. And so rather than, I don't like to have it catered, I'd rather do it myself. And Hugh's a wonderful person to cook for because he would eat something different every night. And that's great. So I can experiment, and some things are better than others. But we do enjoy very much entertaining in our homes because I think you just have so much more time and it's so much more personal. And you can really talk about things that you can't really talk about in a restaurant or, and there's other things going on in the background or all around you. So we've had some great times.
Do you have any tips from over the years of how to entertain? I mean, your house was immaculate, but some people say, don't worry if everything's not perfectly clean. This is one that I feel like I've learned over the years, which is to try to not make super complicated dishes when I'm having people over so that I can focus on being with them. But do you have one or two tips?
I've done it all, right and wrong. I've tried to do as much ahead of time as I can, just so I can enjoy my friends or whoever's coming to dinner. I won't say that I don't necessarily do something complicated because I end up doing that. Most recently have I, and this has been hard for me, allowed other people to bring things. That has been a more difficult decision, but now in one of our dinner groups, we do that. And it does take a lot of the pressure and time off of planning a meal, and it's fine. But it was just a mindset that I had to get through.
Of course. And when you do that, so it sounds like you have dinner groups. Uh-huh. How often do you do dinner group?
Well, this is just this one group. Okay. We do this probably every 2 or 3 months. So it's not a set time. It's whoever can schedule the next one, that when everyone can come.
And this is one of the questions I have because this was one of the tips as well, but it always feels awkward to say, come to dinner and please bring this specifically.
No, what we do is the hostess will say, I'm having lamb chops. So the other three, choose, dessert, appetizer, and something. And I don't tell them what to bring. I just say, you bring whatever, but this is what I'm preparing for the entree.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, perfect. Do you have one or two top resources, books or websites or podcasts or anything that you can recommend to listeners?
Have you read Remarkably Bright Creatures?
No.
Well, it's about octopus. It's a great story and really fun, and it sparked an interest in our book club to go to the aquarium and meet this octopus.
Oh, cool. I love it. I love it. And last question, what do you do for yourself? Do you have a practice, a focus, a habit, or daily routine that contributes to your well-being?
Well, I think trying to stay healthy is number one. And so I do some kind of exercise, either gym or walking or something every day. I'm also a botanical illustrator, so I do drawings. I like to cook, and that's partly therapy, and grow tomatoes, and, our life is
lots of things.
Lots of things. I have lots of interest.
Well, thank you so much. It's been so wonderful talking with you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to an episode of On the Table with Ashley. Subscribing to, rating, and reviewing our show helps us to continue to make quality episodes. So please subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to podcasts. On the Table with Ashley is presented by Amatond, an elevated, everyday, luxury home and tableware brand with products designed to cultivate connection. You can learn more about Amatond at ametendre.com or on Instagram at Amatont. By subscribing to our newsletter on the Amatont website, you'll receive updates on new episodes as well as promotions relating to Amatont and Amatont products. Send us an email at reachoutanytime@amaton.com if you have ideas for guests or series ideas you'd like to pass along. Thanks for listening.